Hi, I'm Emily Laidlove, your Tutoring Solutions. And one of the things that we deal with, whether you're in the classroom or tutoring or a parent, is how do you help your student when they have a crazy spelling list? And I see this so often, and as a tutor, I see it all the time with my students with just crazy lists. Um, and of course, in school, there were there are all sorts of crazy lists that sometimes you were required to have that list. Anyway, so someone sent in this list. This was a fourth grade list, and it has too many words and too many patterns, and it's you could say, well, in fourth grade they would know most of these words, and I would agree that in fourth grade many of the kids would know many of these words, and then you would just have to teach the others. But you'll have kids who have been struggling and they're lost with, like, there's too many words and too many spelling patterns, and what are we going to do? So this is what I do. I take this list, and the first thing I do is I separate it into sounds and spelling patterns. So this list of words has a lot of the oo sound with no EW or no UI, no U with a E at the end, but just these three patterns. So that's not too bad. Oo with three patterns, these three patterns here. And then with just two patterns. So that's actually not too bad. So you're going to spell it by sound, and then within that sound, you're going to think of the couple of different ways that you're spelling it. So I would tell my kids that for the sound oo in this week, the most common spelling is OO, and actually that is even more common than an EW for the oo spelling. So it is a very common spelling. So I'm going to say, hey, except for these few words here, if you have the oo sound, spell it with the OO. But let's take a look. What are these two words in this spelling pattern? OU for group and soup, and it's like, okay, the group will have soup. I can remember that. The group will have soup. Or I can say you will have soup with the group and help you remember that it's the same spelling pattern as the word you. And then prove and move. And you know what? It's a O, and the E at the end is for the V. And so in this list of words, if the word ends with a V, spell it with the O. And then you have an E at the end because we don't ever end a word with a V. Okay. But if you have the sound like in foot or wood or brook or wool or stood or hook or put or push or full. So this is the OO is the most common spelling for that sound. But in this list of words, we have these 5 words that are spelled with just a U. So how are we going to remember these things? So we talk about it, we separate it into the patterns, and then we think, how am I going to remember these? So I would put a picture. Let's start here. So for the oo, you will have soup with a group. Okay, I come up with a little phrase that, and then an image, and I'm not selling it, so it's okay if I grab an image from somewhere. Now I happen to have Canva now, so I just generally, there's always images there I can use. So there's a group of people having soups. You will have soup with a group, and it has the OU. Okay, and we'll talk about the picture. So bunch of people, there's soup, bunch of different types of soup. You will have soup with a group, and we spell it with the OU. Okay, and then I give them a picture with, for the words move and prove, with just the O, and they're arguing. It'll fit. Prove it. And so when you move, you might have to prove that it will fit. So whatever's, I just wrote the words here, but you can have a little sentence that say, we will prove it for our move. When you move, you have to prove it fits. Whatever it is. But just the visual can help you remember. And it doesn't take long. I just like people moving and arguing, and come up with a picture, stick it on there, and then we talk about it. And then for the sound, and we know the OO is the most common spelling, but here we have these words that use the U. Now, if you can't think of a little phrase, I pop these words into Chat GPT and I say, come up with a very short phrase using all of these words. And sometimes I have to move things around, and it happens pretty fast. So I would say, you, with the letter U, can push and pull the bull to put him in the full bush. Okay. And all I do is I found a picture of a girl with a bull, and I stuck see this bush? It's there on top. And I put it there, and you can push and pull the bull to put him in the full bush. If it's not one of these words, spell it with a O-O. Okay? These are the words you'll spell with a U. If it's not one of these words, spell it with a O-O. So you give them, you identify the major group, and then you find a little way of remembering the smaller groups, and say, okay, if it's not one of these words from that smaller group, use what's most common. In this case, it'd be the O-O for the sound. Anyway, so I've done this for years for different levels, and I just found a couple of them on my drive. Like this one was I think it was a second grade wonders and herd of clerks, or, the hurt churn burst, and we would say it hurt when the churn burst. And these words here, first wear your skirt to stir, or my work is worse. So whatever the pattern is, come up with a little phrase, give them an image, and if you repeat the phrase and look at the image once a day, and then spell the words, and then spell them into the patterns, make something like this on your page, where you have the oo on one side and the on one side, and 3 columns for the oo and 2 columns for the and you would spell the words into their pattern as you would practice. Okay. The other thing to do would be to identify any tricky parts, like we would make sure you know that we don't end with a V. If your word ends with a V, stick an E at the end. And over here that we use a K and not a CK or a C, because the CK would indicate a short vowel sound. And over here that we have 2 L's following this short sound, and these are considered short sound. This sound is considered a short sound. So look at those, identify any tricky parts and tricky spellings, talk about them and practice them. And otherwise, you just do the best you can with these crazy lists that are probably pretty okay for a proficient reader and speller, but for our struggling ones, it's too much. But you just do the best you can with giving them something that they can grasp. I hope that helps.